Today we're meeting with Daniel Ko. He's an accomplished saxophone player, a featured SYOS artist, and listed on the Selmer Paris website as one of the brightest new saxophone players to have recently entered the Korean jazz scene. The Daniel Ko trio with Sean Drabbit and Minchan Kim recorded their debut album in 2018 and is titled Sleepless in Seoul.
My name is Daniel Ko. I am a saxophone player, and I am venturing into the producing realm, if you will. I guess a lot of my friends made beats on Logic when we were in Berklee, but a lot. I just focused on the live aspect of music rather than like I love production, but like self-producing, I just wasn't really into that. I just wanted to play with bands, and I didn't have the knowledge to or the funds to have all the studio equipment. But now that COVID hit, it's just kind of not just me. I just noticed it with all these musicians all over the world, really, where everyone's becoming a producer, basically, learning how to record their own sound and developing their setup to accomplish whatever they're hearing in their head to come live in their electronic music space.
Sure. And how did you get into music to begin with? Like, is this a career that you've always pursued, or did you kind of stumble into it, or tell us a little bit about
Music was always in our family, so yeah, my dad, my father is a church minister, and so is my mom, for that matter. But when I was born, they had their own church, and my mother was the pianist in the church. So I was told that while my mother was pregnant, she was singing and playing in the church all the time. So that means I heard my mom's voice, before I was even born. That's pretty much the beginning of my musical life, I'd say. And then I was born, and I was still around, yeah, I was just at the church all the time. There's always music there. So
So when did you decide that you wanted to pursue a career in music?
uh, it kind of naturally happened. Like I never, like I always thought that I would want to be a musician since since I was like, I don't know, maybe I have a vivid memory of when I watched this show when I was like 2 or 3. I think it was like right before I turned 3, and all I remember, it's just this one specific memory. And I was watching the show on TV, and this piano player, this classical pianist, comes up on stage with his what do you call those? Like the tuxedo like thing. I guess it is a tuxedo, with the tail. You know what I mean? And I remember him just like doing the strut, and he like does a little thing so the tail comes out, and he played something on the piano, and then the audience went wild, and then he takes a bow, and I remember thinking I want to do that. So I begged my parents to get me a piano lesson, and this is like right around the time that I was like learning how to like read and write, pretty much. But I remember like because they wouldn't let me. They didn't want to be like the Korean education system, like it took off, especially in the 90s. That's when like kids were like being forced to like go to school from like 8 till like 10 p.m. It's ridiculous. And that was the beginning of it. It was like it was a super divided like way of parenting, like the old school way, like kids are getting beat, like that's nothing, like this is in the 90s. So yeah, my parents were like super like protective in a way that they didn't want me to get a piano lesson from anybody because they were afraid that they were going to hit my hands. That's a thing. Like I'm sure they don't do that anymore, but back in the 90s, yeah, all my friends were getting hit. Like you go to a swimming lesson, you do something else, somebody like like bites you in the cheek or like slaps you with the flip flop, like all these like random things I remember. And it's honestly it's good memories for me. It's hilarious, but at the same time, yeah, I can see why my parents didn't want me to get a piano lesson right away, especially when I was like 3 or 2, 3 years old. But
I got the metal ruler.
oh, you got the metal ruler? Oh no!
Yeah, so I know exactly
See,
what you're talking about.
it's better if you have a wooden stick because when it breaks, it doesn't hurt, you know.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, oh, sorry. I don't know how we got to this topic. I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
But
So you started with piano. When I
yeah,
stumbled
yeah, yeah.
across your profile, because what I really liked about some of your posts was just your soloing work, and you play the saxophone, obviously. So that
Mhm.
didn't, I guess, that didn't come into the picture until I guess a little bit later.
Yeah, just well, my grandfather bought my mom. So my mother's father, he bought a saxophone. He bought a Gardella saxophone, like maybe I'm gonna say around 20 years ago, and that's before he retired. He was planning for his retirement. He decided to get a saxophone, so he had something to do after he retired.
Hmm.
And my mom was visiting Korea to see her parents, and she had some other, things to do in Korea. And this is when we were living in Surrey, so it's like around, I'm going to say around 2004 ish, around there. And I guess she tried my grandfather's saxophone, and she thought it was like the most awesome thing ever. So she came back, went to the Tom Lee music store, bought a saxophone, bought an alto saxophone for $200, and it's a no name, made in Thailand, no brand. Like I've never seen a saxophone like that since. Like very interesting. Anyway, she bought it, and then she didn't let me play it because I was way too young. Like I would have wrecked that horn if she let me play it. So she kept it away from my hands for like I think like 2 years, and then I was like, I turned 10 and I saw it, and I was like, yo, I gotta play it. Like because I was never really interested in playing the saxophone.
Hmm.
It was just more like everything music was cool, but at the same time, I don't know if like even now, music is fun for me. It's not really a thing where I want to think of it as work, and that hasn't changed for me. It's always just fun. And but when you're a child, like that's also bad, because I would have probably like thrown the instrument just for like, fun.
Hmm.
But anyway, I tried my mom's saxophone later on. I asked her if I could play it, and she let me play it. And it's pretty fun, it's really easy to play saxophone. I mean, you play yourself. You must agree. I think it's the one of the easiest instrument to learn how to play,
Hmm. Well, I think
especially while having your own tone as well, like from the bat. It's just so much easier than like any other woodwinds.
for sure. I think it starting with piano, it makes that transition a little easier because it's just there's less to explore, I guess. It was just up and down, and I don't know. That's how I felt, anyways, when I started playing the sax.
For me, it was the scoops and vibrato that was a revelation for me. I didn't know you could do that. I knew you could do that, but I just wasn't aware how that was achieved.
Hmm.
And like, you know, on the piano, there's so much you could do with just one note. But on the saxophone, it's like it's limitless. You can have all you could just play one note all day and it'll still be fun.
I think the first person I listened to I'm just talking about vibrato was Lester Young, and he had a very unique sound, and that's sort of how I started. But speaking of influences, who were your biggest influences? Were there people that you tried to emulate growing up, learning the sax?
When I was learning the saxophone, I was see, I just feel like I wasn't really grounded in a certain style or even an element in music until I really got to Berklee and um, you know,
So
got at least a stronger understanding of the roots in certain aspects of music that I enjoyed.
when you went to Berkeley, there wasn't a specific genre that you were interested in, and
I was definitely interested in everything. Like when I say everything, I mean like like I just wanted to play any gig, you know, like I was told that playing in like a GB band, like a wedding band, or you know, um, like playing in the horn section for a larger group, like a funk group or whatnot, was crucial, um, crucial skill to have as a horn player to survive in the music industry financially, anyway, right? At least in, I don't know, like it's, and especially now that it's COVID, and you know, it's gonna change everything. But yeah, that that definitely was always on my mind in terms of playing music that was accepted by a larger crowd. So like really understanding what what I enjoy and what other people enjoy, and trying to find the common ground in a way. And like, of course, like, you know, you can't win them all, and not every gig can be like, you know, what you hope for. But in the end, I guess I was just I was always just thankful to be playing music. So so like in the sense that like it feels like I wasn't really focusing on what I was really enjoying. It was just more like, wow, I'm playing music. Like, dude, I went to Berklee when I was 17. So like I didn't know. Like, I don't know. I was 17. Like I just thought music was really cool, you know? And I went to Berklee, I realized everyone was better than me, like way better than me. And they all had like, you know, like they grew up listening to this music, this music, this music. I grew up listening to a lot of music. It's just is it, you know, I just listened to a lot of compilation albums. Like we had even like big band music we had it in our house, or like world music. I wasn't really looking up who was in those CDs or anything, you know. I mean, I really should have, but it was just more like the idea of music was what intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became an obsession where I was really digging in. So um when I first got to Berklee, that's when I like really started transcribing, because I really didn't transcribe, not much. I only transcribed one solo before Berklee, and that was Kenny Garrett. Um, ooh, I can't remember the name of the ballad, but it was a ballad. I remember. I had a saxophone teacher in Ottawa at the time, Mike Tremblay, and he told me to transcribe this solo, and I remember doing it. It took me forever, and then I thought, oh, I'm never doing this again. Too much work. And then I realized that's what you got to do to get better.
So that's interesting because, like for me, I relied heavily on my ear, and I think it's partly because there was some resentment from getting hit with a ruler playing piano. So I never really pursued. I didn't like. I think I only got up to maybe grade 9 ish in the, what do you call it, the Royal Conservatory.
Oh, I see.
And so for me, like when I picked up the sax, I was just listening to a lot of different, mostly jazz, guys like Dexter Gordon, Lester Young, John Coltrane, and I never bothered with, like, I guess my idea of transcribing is listening to it, playing it back, and back then it was just tape, so I'd play it, rewind it, and I'd kind of try to play like them. So for you, it wasn't like that at all, I guess.
You know what? Actually, I just remembered something. I really liked Eric Marienthal in high school. I still like him, but I remember there was a period where I was like, wow, Eric Marienthal, Chick Corea, whoa, Electric Band, whoa. Like I remember being completely wowed. I actually do remember that. But I mean, I I really looked up to Eric Marienthal. I mean, I still do, but like I remember just thinking that Eric Marienthal is like super cool because he's playing with Chick Corea and he's playing with Lee Ritenour. Like, what is going on? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was possible. Like, I didn't know that was a thing, you know? And so wow, he's playing jazz, well, fusion, and then he's playing smooth jazz. You know? It like, and then I see David Sanborn and I'm thinking like, wow, that's super cool too, you know, because he's recorded like all these pop saxophone solos, and then and then and then when I saw him live, he was playing with Joey DiFrancesco. And oh, I forget who was on drums that thing. But anyway, it was a blues gig, and I remember thinking, wow, like you can do that. That's what I want. So yeah, the diversity, the openness of these musicians is what made me gravitate towards them.
That's interesting because the soloing, like the ideas in your soloing are so articulate. So I would have thought for sure, you'd be one of those more methodical, you kind of pre write, or maybe even you get ideas and you might put something together before you kind of have a rough idea if you know what song you're playing ahead of time. That's what I thought in the beginning, but I guess that's not the case, and that's actually quite refreshing. So right now, I noticed you played with SYOS mouthpieces.
Hmm.
Um, is there a what brand of or what model of mouthpiece are you using?
I am using the Noel Scott model um, on the Alto.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's a 8 star or
Eight.
eight. Yeah, I think it's an 8 star. I think they go by stars, but yeah, it's like somewhere around an eight. Um,
And can you
and on
give
the
us
tenor,
yeah,
oh
can you
yes,
give
good.
us your yeah, give us your impressions on the performance of that mouthpiece?
Well, it was one of the couple mouthpieces I tried at the headquarters, the SYOS headquarters in in Paris. There's a video of me playing a bunch of their mouthpieces in their shop, right? And Noel Scott model is one of them because I asked for that mouthpiece because I loved it. Like it was my favorite one out of the bunch. Um, so it's an interesting topic, right? They're definitely blowing up right now, and there's mixed feelings of what these mouthpieces really are. It's just a completely different way of approaching a mouthpiece. In a traditional sense, is it a good mouthpiece? Well, I'm trying to think what is a good traditional mouthpiece. Well, the tip has to line up exactly with the reed. So, like you look at like a Ted Klum, for example, that you put in your reed on, it's like it matches perfectly somehow, like it's magic. I don't know how he does it. And then the plate, like the rails, the newer, like I don't want to say newer, but like there's people who like side rails that are thicker and side rails that are thinner. But the, no matter which one you like, it should be very even, and it should uh, uh, be very flat where the table is, in terms of the side rails and the table. I mean, and then you have the French scoop or the English scoop for the actual table itself, and that's like the little concave area on the table. So where when you put the reed on there, a soaked reed, then it'll basically morph into the shape of the table of your mouthpiece. So it'll have a better seal the entire time, right? So therefore, if you have a good mouthpiece, you could do the suction test, right? Where you close the other end of the neck or the mouthpiece, and then you suck on it a little bit, and then it goes pop. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in that sense, is SYOS a good mouthpiece? Well, no, because it doesn't do that. Like it's none of those, because it's 3D printed. Like if you see a printed 3D printed object, you see that there's all these lines because it's literally being printed, right? So you're gonna have a completely smooth surface. Number one. Number two, there's an angle, so the side rails are a little bit different. Like you can see just by looking at it, the side rails, like the shape or something, it's just a little different. Like if you're like OCD about this stuff, it might drive you a little nuts.
Mm-hmm.
The tip, it's not like the perfect shape of the reed. It's pretty big. So your lips are gonna have to get used to it. As in, like, if the table's bigger than the reed, it's gonna cut your lip a little bit. And also, it depends on each and individual mouthpiece that they produce, I'm sure.
Sure.
But with all that said, when I play the SYOS mouthpiece, it sounds so original, and I can play any note I want. In terms of playing the higher notes, like the higher register, gotta be careful. Like it's just a different way of playing the mouthpiece, different way of playing the horn. Everything sounds kind of subtonish. a lot more mids, and then the high just comes out in the high register, so you just got to back off a little bit. But it's very mids heavy. Now, at first, I thought this was like not cool. You know, honestly, at first I was like trying to figure this out, and then I realized, oh, most people like to record on like cheap microphones. Like if I have a Neumann or something, then yeah, I can play like you know, like any like really popular or just any good mouthpiece, whether it be rubber or metal. I can just play it, and then I can just figure it out, because a good microphone is going to get the entire body of the tone. And what you want as a player is the tone that you're going to be hearing back from your own ears. So you're not even actually looking for the sound that you're actually producing. You're just trying to hear your sound better. That's it, right? And the feeling of playing the mouthpiece. So, you know, in terms of the feeling, you're going to have to get used to it, because it does feel significantly different from a standard, like traditional mouthpiece. But like, it's got this mids quality. So like, it might sound a little stuffy to a degree, but at the same time, if you record it with like an SM57, it'll sound pretty good. Like SM57, I used to really hate SM57s, because no matter what I played on an SM57, everything sounded like I was playing, you know, very nasal, like very bright. You know, every altissimo note sounded like way thinner than I thought it was. You know, and then I tried playing everything on the SYOS, and all of a sudden SM57 is my favorite microphone. I tried recording on the Neumann on the SYOS, and it doesn't sound as good for some reason. Like SM57 sounds great with the Noel Scott model, I should say. But yeah, so I just think it's a different approach. It's just a different thing, you know?
Mm. So is the SYOS mouthpiece like your go-to right now, or is it like a part of a number of mouthpieces? Like, you know, because you noticed you mentioned that the way that you approach playing with the SYOS mouthpiece is a little different than, you know, say like a classical mouthpiece. So, you know, would you play a gig just on that mouthpiece, knowing that you have to play a little differently with that mouthpiece?
Yes. I've played pretty much all sorts of uh, styles of gigs. Like I've played like pop and like fusion, jazz, R&B. Yeah, I've it's cool. It works. It also depends on what kind of room I'm in. Like, because it's mids heavy, SYOS sounds really good at a certain dynamic. Well, every mouthpiece sounds good at a certain dynamic range. So it really depends on the room, depends on the setup. Like, once again, if I'm like, what I want to know, what is the venue really big? Am I going to be using a microphone? What kind of microphone do they have? You know, like everything. Uh, but it depends. I guess I go through phases. I totally do go through phases of different mouthpieces, but it's in the list. It's definitely in the list. I won't say SYOS is the only mouthpiece I play. No, it's not. But it is. It's been pretty much my main piece for the past 2 years about.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I have my Clum, I have my short shank, I have my long shank. Like, you know, I have my early Babbitt. You know, I love mouthpieces. What can I say?
Well, thanks for being honest.
Yeah, of course. I can't, you know, then somebody's gonna point out like, oh, he's playing whatever, so and so and this. Yeah, I play all sorts of mouthpieces. But I do love my SYOS pieces.
Cool. So, do you have a relationship with SYOS? Are they endorsing you or or sponsoring you?
Well, I'm on their website. I'm a SYOS artist. And I know Pauline, um, because it was really interesting. Um, this girl I went to Berklee with, it turns out she was working at the SYOS factory, so I had no idea. Her name is Sylvie, and I hit her up and I was like, Sylvie, like, how are you doing? Like, I didn't know you're working at this mouthpiece company. How is it? And she sends me a video of herself playing. It's like, hey, like you want to do like a little review, like you want to do a little test, we can send you a couple mouthpieces for you to try, like see if you like it.
Hmm.
And then Pauline got in touch with me, and she said she's coming to Korea to do a showcase. So they sent me a couple of mouthpieces over. I did a review for them, um, and the day of the showcase came. So there's another saxophone player who goes by Sunjay Lee. That's his name. Um, who's also uh, uh, he's an acupuncture specialist as well as a doctor of natural medicine.
Mm.
Um, and he plays free jazz. So we did a little demo, SYOS demo, and it's on YouTube as well. Sanjay Lee and Daniel Ko, and we're like playing free, like we're like making bird calls and like flutter tonguing and whatnot. So yeah, we did that, and I remember I hadn't quite finished the entire review. Some of them I did, but I wasn't happy with it. So I remember asking Pauline, like, can I keep these mouthpieces a little more, just a little longer? I'll get it back to you, because I'm going to Paris soon. So um, let me do the review, and then which I did, which is on my YouTube page. And so did a little review. Then I met up with Pauline in Paris. So my relation with SYOS, I consider Pauline a friend because she took me out on a boat ride. Went to Paris and she took me out on a boat ride. It was yeah, it was yeah, we went on a boat ride with her and her boyfriend and her brother and his girlfriend. And we're all on a boat together eating bread and tuna. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is not like somebody that I'm like thinking of as a business partner. Like she's a friend, you know? Like
Hmm.
she's cool. She's like super down to earth too. So yeah, that's like my answer right there. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, we've never met, but I kind of gather that from their website. She seems like a really laid back, very cool person.
Yeah, and she just tells you what's on her mind. Like it's super cool.
So can you, I'm gonna back up a little bit here because I want to get the timeline correct. So when your parents had the church, was that in Korea or was that in Ottawa?
That was in Korea.
In
Their
Korea.
own church, yeah, that was in Korea.
So then you made, because you made the move when?
We moved to Canada. We moved to Surrey in 2001.
In 2001. So, well, I guess what I'm getting at is, how much does your background at the church and like, do you have any Korean influences as well in your music? Do you find that that kind of comes into your music?
Oh yeah. I mean, like there's like obviously like melodies that I grew up with. So like if you grew up in a Korean church, you might notice me like playing like a melody, like whether it be like yeah, just like whatever. Like I there's a lot of melodies that I just comes up to me out of nowhere. And here's how I really look at it. Um So I grew up, I guess, listening to more hymns than like it wasn't like wow, you know what I mean? Like it's not that kind of church. It's like hymns, you know? And I remember like when I was a kid, I remember thinking like, oh, hymns can be pretty boring sounding, you know? It's like oh block chords, like what is going on? Like, everything's very flowing, like oh. And then one day I realized, oh, these are really old melodies and people put lyrics to them. Okay. And then I started thinking about all these different I remember well this is when it really happened. I remember looking at this one hymn that had the Lord's Prayer and thinking, whoa, like that's a song. That's the Lord's Prayer. That's like whoa, that's like supposed to be like the most important prayer and like it's a song, and like my brain basically just rewired itself, and I was just kind of in awe at the fact that it just fit so perfectly to this melody.
Mm.
And then I realized that any melody can be manipulated to have any lyrics to your liking. So there's no such thing as a good or bad melody.
Mhm.
Like in terms of just something that's melodic, it's just melodic. It's up to the person who's using the melody to have a different effect, right? Because I don't want to say everything's all negative either, because there's always yin and the yang and yang and the yin. So, there's definitely different ways to view that. But my influence is from the church. I think for me, that's a really big one. Just understanding lyricism and understanding that anything really can be used for anything.
Mm.
So, you know, it's like, as cheesy as that sounds, it's like with, great power comes great responsibility. It's the same thing. You got good melodies, you better use it properly,
Sure.
because if it's a great melody, you can influence people to do weird things, whatever that may be, whatever emotion you convey.
So,
But yeah.
switching tracks a little bit. So, you've spent some time in Korea. How is the music scene different there than it is in Canada?
Ooh.
Like,
Well, the entire
what could be a
society
better
is a little different. Like the music reflects is a
let's put
reflection of the current society, right? No matter
let's
where you're at.
let's put it this way, I guess. Obviously with COVID, travel is limited, but do you plan to go back and have establish yourself there, or do you like what do you see in the near future for yourself?
Oh man. Well, I'm in a really tricky spot right now because I was really trying to go back to the States at some point, but now that COVID hit, you know, it's just what it is. I had, I had a gig in Berlin like 2 months ago that got canceled. So I was gonna try to check out the Europe scene too, but that's all canceled, obviously. Um, Coming fall, I have a festival gig and a recording session in Korea. So I am
Okay.
going back. And then I have a gig booked in London for a festival in October as well, which is still on hold. Like we don't know if it's gonna happen, right? Uh, so it's kind of tricky right now. It really is. Like I haven't played a gig in 6 months. It's it's pretty rough.
What kind of music would you be playing in Korea? What is that with a band or?
Yeah, well, I had a trio. I had the Daniel Code trio. Um, Minchan Kim on drums and Sean Drabbit on bass. That was the trio for a good while. And then
Why I
also I
ask is
just need,
because I think you kind of go between jazz, R&B, kind of maybe even neo soul a little bit, but
yeah, I just try to play all music, right? Right now, I'm just focusing on the production side. So like stuff that's like, not necessarily easily accessible for like the general public. I don't mean it in that sense. I just mean it in a sense that I'm trying to like think outside the box. Like I never, I have I've never actually owned a multi effects pedal, but I have a whammy pedal, overdrive, digital delay, and distortion pedal for my saxophone. For me, that was like so much. Like, oh, I have all these pedals. Like, whoa. And then I'm like looking at how to mix, and there's like way more stuff. Like, that's just like not even the tip of the iceberg. There's so much stuff. So, uh, right now, I'm just trying to figure out, like really, 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 how to play this music that I'm writing on the computer to be played in a live setting. That's just the goal right now. I mean, I'm once a lot of these tracks are actually finished, then I'd send them over to the people that I want to play with, and then I'd set up a session, and then we'll rehearse a couple times, play a couple gigs, and then try to record it. And no matter where I am, I want to be recording. You know, like for example, like I'm going to Korea for a little bit, so I want to record as much as I can while I'm in Korea, and then I'm gonna try to come back because I've been in Korea for a couple of years. I felt that it was time for a little change. Come back. You know, it is a different culture there. I wouldn't say anything's better or worse. It's just different. Um, but musically, it's also different.
Right. Would you say that they have a pretty strong jazz scene? I know you're not. You're not. I don't know. I know that you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into that genre, but is that? And I don't want you to. I know.
Oh no, I understand. I mean, I've mostly played jazz gigs all my life. I mean, most of my gigs have been jazz, more or less. You know, like standard gigs and stuff. So, in terms of the number of gigs, are there a lot of gigs that you can play if you can play standards, jazz standards? Then the answer is yes. Every gig also has to have a vocalist. So are you going to be playing like cool hard bop tunes all the time and like live off that music? Absolutely not. There's also, you know, the whole culture behind like, you know, respecting people of age, and it's different. I mean, you know, it's just a different way of showing respect. Different way of demanding respect, whether that be for good or bad, you know, like just a whole different approach to communication even.
My wife is Korean, so you don't have to explain any of that.
So you know what I mean.
I don't have so we got maybe about 5 minutes. It's my fault for the technical glitches at the beginning. I just wanted to get a sense of, you know, you talked about some of your aspirations. You know, you're producing a little bit more. Is the end goal, I guess, an album in the near future?
Yeah, that it really is. I'm just working for that right now. You know, just getting into synthesizers and you know, plugins here and there. Just
most of your recent posts are with the EUE 5000, I think.
yeah.
Is that something that you're just experimenting with, or are you going to include that as integrate that into your sound for the album, or?
Oh, I'm totally using that completely. My piano playing skills are not very good. Like I can play stuff that's melodic, but then all of a sudden, if I want to shred, I have no shredding skills. Nope. No, I just try to play and it goes flop. You know, like I can't do anything. So that's when the EWI comes in. So I can't play the chords on the EWI, but I can play pretty fast. You know, like here. I can play what I'm hearing. Let's put it that way. Now, it doesn't matter if it's playing fast or slow, but certain things are easier to achieve for me on the EWI than it is on the keyboard. Also, I'm using a Korg mini log, so that has 3 octaves. And then I guess you also have the octave shifts, so you have a lot more octaves. But on the EWI, you have 8 octaves, and you just go like this, you know. So it's pretty cool. Like, you know, I've always been a fan of Michael Brecker, and I only picked up the EWI in April, I believe.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's when I started playing the EWI. So it's been just a little over 3 months, I guess.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again for your time, and whatever I can do, I'll try to get your name out there. But thanks again for making the time. This is, I think, a privilege for me to get to know artists like yourself.
And thank you so much for having me. You know, it was a It's a pleasure speaking with you. Didn't really feel like an interview. It's just more like we're,
Oh,
just
this wasn't
connecting.
meant to be like an interview or anything. We're just it's supposed to be off the cuff, and we're just like
Oh,
talking.
cool. Well, I'm glad that we got to connect. Feel free to reach out anytime. If you have any questions regarding anything that I might know, then yeah, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you.
For sure. All right, thanks again.